Good evening, everybody. This evening I'm joined again, very kindly, by Connor Doyle after last night's technical glitch. Big time glitch. Really appreciate his time. And we're going over the North Sea. Irish Sea, it's not the North Sea at all. If I went over the North Sea, where would that take me? Connor, where would that take me?
Whereabouts are you?
In Scotland, Peebles.
Oh, well, then you'd be in Norway or
no,
something like that.
Totally the wrong direction altogether. So it would take me a few thousand miles to get to Ireland, I guess.
It would, but the Vikings did it, don't forget. Like the Vikings, kind of spent a lot of time here, and in Scotland and the north of England. So there's no problem.
Yeah, good. We had a lovely chat last night, and it was even, we had an hour's chat, and it was great getting to know you. Anyway, it really doesn't bother me. It's quite a nice way to spend an evening, I think, don't you think? Just chatting away to people. I quite like it.
Absolutely. Sure. During lockdown,
I know.
Any bit of diversion is great. My weekly kind of outing now is to go and do the grocery shopping on a Thursday night. Yeah. Like, that's how bad things are,
With me, I'm even worse. We have it delivered. I only live about a mile from the shop, and I drive, and Becky will do a shop, and I said, "What are you doing a shop for? I want to go out." Please,
like even to put on a jacket and put on real shoes rather than runners or trainers, just to do something different on a Thursday evening is so much nicer.
And do you get any Don't Wish My Holiday? Is it Thursday or Wednesday? It's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday.
Oh, thank God. I'm on holiday this week. I thought you just scared me. You just wasted a day of a holiday. So let me show you what I did today. Watch this.
Okay.
Can you see my fence?
Oh, I can. I'm very impressed, Martin. Fair play.
No, it's
does it need one or two colours?
Don't even say that loudly. Thank you. It's
okay. Somebody might hear.
Somebody might. No, I think it's. Generally, you paint it and then it soaks it all up, doesn't it? God, this is terrible chat. It soaks it all up, and then you kind of, by the time you finish one bit, you think, "Oh, that looks a bit patchy," and you do it again, and you go through so much.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't mind. It's quite a distraction. I haven't been very well with this labyrinthitis thing, and I haven't been able to do much. And I can't run or anything physical like that because I feel a bit wobbly. But it's nice to get out in some air, and it's been quite nice. It's been cold, but quite a nice day. How's it been in Dublin today?
Well, we had a fantastic week last week up until about Saturday. Now it's still sunny, but it's gone very cold. We're getting this Arctic blast into, I think, the middle of next week or something. Like last week, the temperature, like in the UK, was up around 19, 20, 21, and it was balmy. It really was gorgeous.
It was nice today, but it was just cold, really cold here.
Yeah, like I was out for a walk earlier, but it has got a lot cooler. Yeah. But sure, look.
Exactly.
What can we can't complain about.
It's not raining, so I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
So tell me. I know you told me in great detail about the room that you're in. Could you tell me just a little bit about that? Yeah.
This is my archive den, where I keep, as you can see, I'm as I explained last night that I'm lucky enough to own one of the largest theatre memorabilia collections in Ireland. Which is 99% of it is in the theatre archives in Dublin, and some of it is with the National Museum as well, because my godfather was a very famous Irish performer, actor, film star, Jimmy O'Dea. My aunt, dad's sister, was his second wife, and they had no kids, so everything came to me. Like for the guys in the UK or in Scotland, he was in the Disney film Darby O'Gill and the Little People with Sean Connery.
Really?
He was King Brian. So I have quite a bit of the Disney memorabilia. I have letters from Disney. I have his costume, all that kind of stuff. Sean Connery even phoned me about 10 years ago about the film, because this really was where he started his career. But Jimmy was a stage performer, and Biddy Mulligan was his stage persona. They say he was a drag queen, but he wasn't the drag queen that we kind of look at today. You can kind of see him up here. It was he was a Dublin street trader, and used to be making fun of politicians and the city council and all that kind of anything was fair game.
And he was your godfather.
He was, yeah. My aunt Ursula was my god.
And she
my
married him later, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, she was 31 or 32.
Right.
He was nearly 60.
Really?
He was slightly older than her father,
Wow.
which obviously caused a bit of
Oh yeah, big time.
thank God there was no social media in those days, or it would have been just
1360.
absolute.
My goodness.
Yeah. So, and that's why
But he was obviously a big character, right?
Oh, huge. He was probably the most famous Irish actor or performer in his time. And he started off in the 1920s, and he did straight plays and that kind of stuff. And then he moved into variety theatre, and that's where he really made his name. In the 1930s, he toured all over the UK. You can see the orange poster up behind me here is from the Liverpool Hippodrome from 1930. I have another one here just in front of me from the Colosseum in London, so in 1934. And then he made three pictures or films with Betty Driver from Coronation Street. Remember Betty Driver? She was Betty's hot pot.
Yes.
So they made three pictures together. She had a fantastic singing voice, and they made three pictures in L Street together just before the war.
How amazing! And have you always had an interest in it? I'm just interested to know, why did you get it from the rest of everybody? Did everybody else says, well, I don't want it, or have you always had a general interest in it, in the stuff that she had anyway?
And like Auntie Ursula, she lived in a flat, as they used to be, in a big Georgian house here in Dublin, with the ceilings were all about 15 or 16 feet high, and you couldn't heat the rooms. But Jimmy had kept all his memorabilia going back to the 1920s.
Wow.
And they were all in drawers, probably because they had no kids. They didn't have to clean out anything.
Yeah.
So when you'd go over to see your Auntie Ursula, of a Sunday afternoon, and because she wasn't too well for about 5 years before she died, she had a bad heart condition. Yeah. And she'd start, after you've discussed the weather and everything else, how everybody is, she'd say, oh, I must show you this. And she'd bring you around the room. Really? And there was, amazing historical items, because Jimmy had been hanging around as a young fellow with a man called Sean Lamass, who went on later to be Taoiseach, or Prime Minister of Ireland. Really? And they were heavily involved in what's now called the revolutionary period in Ireland from 1916 up to 22 or 23. So there was a lot of bits and pieces. Now, Jimmy himself certainly wasn't, but Jimmy was actually Sean Lamass's best man at his wedding. Amazing. So there was a huge family connection there. So, like, from a historical point of view, there's loads of...
You obviously know a lot about it. And how have you learned in the last 5 or 6 years, or did you always know? Or have you just researched, or what?
Well, I use Facebook and Twitter.
Really?
A great deal.
To find things.
And what I do, like, it's fantastic. You put up something on Twitter, and, kind of loads of people bail in and say, or tag it, or retweet it, or pass comment, that's my granny, or this is my auntie, I love that film. Darby O'Gill, of course, is an iconic film. Like, there was bits and pieces on it, obviously, around Patrick's Day. And last week, Eamon Holmes retweeted a message about the film, and like, my Twitter feed just went through the roof.
Wow.
Last month, there was 152,000 people saw my Twitter feed.
Wow.
Which is mad, absolutely mad.
Absolutely.
And then on Facebook, you put up the same kind of photographs, and there's a great Facebook page, Dublin Down Memory Lane, that have 75,000 members, and you send it to them, and if they like it, they'll put it on their Facebook page, and it just goes mad. And that's why, as I was saying, that Dad got into playing badminton, because his sister Ursula and her brother, his brother Noel, were child performers.
Right.
And just before the war, they went touring in Belfast and across the UK, and then after the war. So my grandfather started playing badminton in the late 30s. So we had to bring Dad with him to the badminton hall in the old gas company here in Dublin. And that's where he started to play badminton. And he had trained in a famous Connie Ryan's dance class. to do Irish dancing, and he danced in the Royal Albert Hall. So he was a champion Irish dancer. So you can imagine how good his footwork was on the court. Like he didn't have to think about, like you were talking about, scissor kicks and all this kind of stuff, or hotono, whatever jumps. Dad just danced across the court.
It's very athletic, isn't it? Dance and. I mean, Kirsty Gilmore in Scotland, she was a gymnast. So the flexibility that she has, that was her thing growing up. And it's just the flexibility moving around and the angles you can make and the tone in your body, and you're obviously incredibly strong legs as a dancer, right? Especially Irish dancing, those things go like crazy.
So that's where he started playing badminton, and then kind of Frank Peard took him under his wing in the late 1940s. And
who was that, Connor? Who's Frank Peard?
Frank Peard, the famous Frank Peard. Frank was one of these iconic figures in Irish badminton. Frank won the Scottish Open. I think he got to the semi-finals of the All England men's doubles with a man from Dublin called Jim Fitzgibbon in 52 or 53. They were beaten by Eddie Chung and his brother Dave in the semi-finals. Like Frank was not alone an amazing badminton player, fantastic coach, and also an amazing administrator for Badminton Ireland and the Leinster branch, quite honestly. Now he fell out with a lot of people over the years, as people do, but I got on so well with Frank and Sue. His wife was Sue Peard, or Sue Devlin. I think she'd won 6 All Englands. So they knew what they were talking about, quite honestly. And I had great fun with Frank. If you were like, the kind of thing would happen with Frank is he'd invite you out for lunch, and you'd go out to the house out in Lucan, which is on the west of the city here, and you go in and you're sitting in this lovely lounge, and Frank and Sue would go out and get you a cup of tea or coffee, and they turn on the lights in the cabinet displays, the glass cabinet displays, and all of a sudden you're looking around and there's all these All England trophies, and Uber Cup stuff, and you're kind of going, I've died and gone to heaven. Wow. Because she had won it so many times, you got to keep the trophy. I think it was after 3 or 4 times. So there was all these amazing, kind of medals of winning, kind of the Uber Cup for a couple of times for America. And then you're having your lunch, and Sue would bring in the sugar in a lovely little silver sugar bowl and a spoon, and she'd say, well, you used to get a spoon if you won the All England as well. And you're kind of looking at this thinking, okay. And then the sugar bowl was an inscription on it to her father, who was Frank Devlin, who won 22 All Englands, and it said from kind of Sir Thomas, and you're kind of going, like, who's that? And of course it was the Thomas Cup.
Oh, wow.
So there was all these, you'll have to get somebody like Pam Peard on, because Pam has fantastic stories about that whole era, and her grandfather, who was back in the 20s and into the 30s, like a badminton superstar.
Really? I will. She actually dropped a message earlier on, about I think she tried to watch the video last night and couldn't hear it.
Right.
She tried to find it on YouTube, and obviously I hadn't uploaded it because it was so clicky. Let's go on to some badminton questions. So, what's your full name? This was interesting. Hold on, can I remember it? No, I can't. I think there was an Anthony Lawrence. There was a Lawrence. There was obviously a Doyle. There's a Lawrence. Was there an Anthony? Was there a James? No.
Yeah. You're going well. So it's Connor, James, Anthony, Lawrence, Doyle.
That's it. I got them all.
That's very good.
For me, that's really good. Like I said, the good thing about interviewing somebody twice is that I am like a goldfish. I am like my goldfish over here, which I don't know if you can see. They haven't got a clue. They haven't got it's quite nice. It's a bit cloudy at the moment. I'm not a goldfish. I've got no memory whatsoever. So I could have a conversation with you, and I could phone you back in 10 minutes and ask you the same question again. I'm like quite literally like a goldfish. And your age?
I was 60 last week, the 31st.
Congratulations, 31st of March.
Thank you.
So your date of birth is what? The 31st of March.
The 31st of the 3rd, 61.
31st of the 3rd, 61. Wow, that's good. It's I'm sure I'm not meant to ask your date of birth. That's I shouldn't do that. And your home area, you're from Northern Dublin, yes.
Yeah, north side of Dublin. Yeah, and I live in a town called Malahide.
And was that were you in the city? Was it a big? Was it rural, suburban
Well,
Dublin, or was it very city
well,
lifestyle?
Malahide is about 10 miles north of the city centre.
Yes, but where you
Uh,
grew up, I'm saying, was it
well,
city
I grew up on the
city
north side.
living? Was it
I
city
lived,
living?
yeah,
Was it?
so it is fairly rural. Well, it is and it isn't. It was when we first came out here 30 something years
Yes.
ago, but obviously it's built up. But
Yeah.
we're fairly lucky. They've held on to a couple of green belts between the different towns here, kind of, and Portmarnock and other places along the coast. So, they're, like we're very lucky that, yeah, you could go 10 minutes down the road and there's, 5 minutes down the road and it is, kind of farms and,
Yeah.
agricultural land.
I'm thinking about going back, Connor, to when you grew up as a child. Was that proper city living when you were a kid? And
No, no, we never
did
lived
you
in the
not?
city. No,
Right.
no, we were out in Raheny,
Right.
and which was a suburb, but not,
Yeah, it was quite rural.
shall we say, city. Well, certainly when we my grandparents bought the house in 1948, and then my mum and dad moved in when they got married in 57 or 58, and it was still the countryside then, and then over time the area built up, but it wasn't kind of inner city living, if you want to
Yeah,
describe it like
and
that.
as far as like your badminton courts that you went to, where was that when you first played? When you
Well,
first played badminton?
well, when we first played badminton, we were in a club called St Gabriel's. It was a one small little church community centre in here in Dublin called St Gabriel's, which was in Dollymount, and Dad brought us down. There was a group of kids, and we used to be there for a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon, and Dad would coach us, and we played with those awful. Do you remember the Carlton heavy plastic shuttles that you just
No,
couldn't
I'm too
break?
young for them. I'm too
And
young for them, Connor.
oh, yeah, sorry, you're too young for those. Sorry, and like you would be breaking your arm trying to clear these things or smash them. And there was another guy called Peter Bastable that I used to play doubles with, and Peter was a year older than I, and literally we to to try and smash those shuttles or even clear the shuttles,
Really?
you had to absolutely lash into the shuttle. And Dad was, very strong on how to play. He was our coach, how to play proper smashes
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So compared to our opposition over on the south side of Dublin, like Barry Coffey and Robert Taylor and some of those guys, they were using feather shuttles.
Yeah.
So when we got to play them, we were able to, absolutely lash into the shuttle. Like the mantra was, if it came above your head, you thumped
Yeah.
it. It was as simple as that. There was very little finesse about it, whereas the guys like Barry and Robert had a little bit more, I suppose, class about them. Is that the best way to
Touch.
describe
Yeah.
it? They'd lovely touch, they'd lovely, lovely hands, if that kind of stuff, if you want to describe it like
Yes.
that. Whereas we were,
Quite physical.
if it, yes, yeah,
And
certainly.
probably having a dad, I always think that I taught my son how to play, and there's nothing better, I don't think, than learning from somebody that can play. I think when somebody can get back, whenever you hit it over, you can get it back. It's, as children, you want continuous thing. I think the problem
Yes.
that people make with children and coaching children is that they go with one shuttle. And you go with one shuttle with a child that's never played badminton before, and you hit it to them, and they spend the whole time picking them up. And one of the very first things he learned is to take a box of 100 shuttles and tell them to stand there and hit it and hit it and hit it, and they love it. They love it, and they learn.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I suppose the other way of doing it, some people go on about the fishing rod with a feather on a string. Have you ever heard that with it on the line?
Yeah.
On that one
Yes.
for
Yes.
young children,
Yeah.
it's good, right? I think it's
Yes, it is. Like anything just to get them hitting it, and it is. You're right. If you have a young child and they're having this racket and they're kind of swiping at this thing on that, they just get frustrated and say, "I'm not doing this anymore." And certainly, like, we were lucky that having Dad as our coach at the start, because we didn't realize until later on that how good Dad was, having won,
really.
the Irish Open, the Scottish Open, and the Welsh Open singles all in the same year, and being ranked something like number 5 or 8 in the world in men's singles and all that kind of stuff. It was only later on that you got to appreciate that kind of stuff. Much later on, can I point out,
Really?
or even if you were going over to be coached by somebody like Sue Peard,
Yeah.
you know, as I said, who had won something like 6 All Englands, and like we were allowed to call her Auntie Sue. Yeah, you know, everybody else had to call her Mrs. Peard. We were allowed to call her Auntie Sue, and like that, you know, and she would have been only just kind of coming out of playing senior internationals and seeded at All Englands, and it just never, like, she was one of the coaches when we went to Nottingham to the English schools when I was under 16, and you know, you walk into the hall and there was nearly a gasp as Sue walked by, you know, that kind of a way, and out of reverence, and we were going, what's going on here, you know? And they say, oh, is that really Sue Peard with you? And we're going, well, yeah, like, you know, it never thought, we never, and in fairness to Sue, she never, you know, kind of gave that impression that I am who I am. She just wasn't like that. And I think Hank and Dad and a lot of those players of that generation, that wasn't in their makeup. They were just, you know, ordinary Joe Soaps who just happened to be extremely good at badminton.
And so that was obviously later on, but who is it? Was your dad good as by way of as beginner's coach? You know, did he get you interested in it? You know, it's interesting when I talked to Elaine. It didn't feel that she started with a love of the sport. It didn't feel like she started like most who have had, you know, there was a teacher that kind of took it, it was all right at the school, and they would get a group of kids together and they'd just have a laugh with it. I didn't get that from Elaine at all. I very much got the feeling that we
were in a different kind of, a different boat, you know, quite honestly. Like in neither Elaine's school or my school, we hadn't got a sports hall.
Yes.
So, like, we were, I know Elaine told you about going up to the hall in the psychiatric home.
Yes.
And that was a scary place, believe me.
It was.
But like, we just went along. Now, can I just point out, Elaine didn't have to train because she was just a natural. Her footwork was always good. Yeah. She could hold the racket properly. She could belt the shuttle. Elaine was a much better tactician and a skilled player than, you know, kind of myself or Jacqueline, my older sister. You know, I had to work very hard.
But do you think that's natural, Connor? Do you think that's a natural thing that somebody has, or do you think that somebody should just studied harder at it? Do you think?
No, I think there are people who are just good at sports or languages. I'm shocking at languages. There are those people that are just brilliant at it. There's people who are excellent at drawing or painting or whatever. Other people aren't. You know, there are amazing. Like surgeons, you know, who do all sorts of amazing, and they can't form a sentence if they have to talk to somebody. You know, that's people are thankfully made so different that you know, that not everybody. Elaine just had this natural gift of playing the game. Yeah. Used to drive myself mad. Like, you know, we'd be working hard doing the routines, and Elaine would just go, you know, this is too easy on board.
How long did you have the routines for? You know, did your dad get yourself into doing shadow badminton and all that stuff? Was that what it was?
Well, we wouldn't have started off doing the shadow badminton. We would have been just at the start now, just hitting and serving and playing clears and drops and all that kind of stuff. But of course, it was a different game. You know, Dad was, you know, the rackets were heavier. So you had the wooden rackets, and Dad kept saying, now you had to put the racket behind your head and reach as high as you can. And you had to scratch between the, you know, the kind of the blades of your back, of your shoulder blades with the racket, and throw it at the shuttle, because that's what you had to do. There was no this whatever they call it nowadays, you know, pronation or whatever, you know, like that was what happened.
You needed breath strength because there wasn't the technical stuff, is that you needed the breath strength to get behind the racket.
Yes. Yeah, because like it was only later when all the kind of the Carlton you know, kind of rackets, the 3.7 and 3.7S and all that kind of stuff, and X, you know, came along, that, you know, techniques changed, like the Onyx rackets now, you know, or whoever they are, you know, that the whole game has changed.
So let's go back to the question. So you had you obviously had Elaine, and who else?
Well, Garrett, my younger brother.
Yeah, Garrett.
Garrett always said he was the best of the whole lot of us. But he played Irish under-15 team against Scotland and Wales, and then he packed it in for a while, and then he came back for a couple of years, but never really kind of got back into it. Which is terrible.
Is he very local to you now, Connor?
No, Garrett lives out of the west of the country,
really?
Out in Roscommon. He's out the other side of the country.
Should get himself. Is he? It can't be far from Donegal, is he? That area.
He's a fair distance.
Is he?
Yeah, fair distance.
It's not an area of Ireland I've ever been to. I've been to Portrush a lot, the north, and I've been to Dublin. I've been to Belfast a little, but I've never actually been down Leacock, and I would like to go to the south and the west side. Love Portrush, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a lovely town.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm lucky to have a friend that's is a country member of Portrush. He was in Portrush and he grew up there. And the golf club, I think he lives in Edinburgh, and he pays a nominal amount to continue to be a country member of Portrush. And the first year Royal Portrush, yeah. And the rules are quite strict on it, in that you have to have, I think you've got to have been a junior.
Okay.
At Royal Portrush, you can't just have been from Portrush and kind of gone away and then just have a country membership for £200 a year, because it's £200 a round, really. So I think it was something like he had to have, and then the first year I went, he says, "Oh, I can get us all on." I was like, "Wow!" And it was like £20 or something to play Royal Portrush at the time, and they've changed a lot of the regulations now on how you get. I don't know if you play golf, but they've changed a lot of the regulations on. You can only have one guest on at a time or something like that. It's really It got really messy. Eventually, it got really messy. We got there was about 4 guys from Portrush would turn up on the first tee, and then would tee off, and then they'd walk off. Literally, they'd get us on our way from the starters. We'd just get out of sight. Right, boys, I'm away, and there'd be 3 guys. Where did those members go? Anyway, sorry, I digress. What age did you first play? 9 or 10, you said last night, right?
About 8 or 9. Well, you see, we used to go. Well, my mum used to play league matches, because Dad stopped when he was about 33, 34, for health reasons. And so Mum used to go and play matches. And what we would do is because we were older than Elaine and Garrett, we might go tour with her to some of the matches.
Yes.
And between, when one match finished and another match was just about to start, we'd run out with anybody's rackets and just have a knock, for 5 or 10 minutes until you were thrown off.
So was this the 3 of you?
No, Elaine wouldn't have been on those ones, because she would have been she's a couple of years younger than me. Yeah. So this would have been. Now it would have been when we were on holidays, like midterm or Easter, because obviously during the week, when you were in school, you weren't allowed to that. But Mum might bring us along to a couple of matches, and you just literally run out on the court and get 5 or 10 minutes, in your clothes, may I point out, and just get a bit of a knock.
Yeah, nice.
And be delighted with yourself, and go home happy.
And you really enjoyed it. You liked it. It wasn't like a chore.
Oh, yeah. Now, there were times when it was tough, and it has to be tough. Let's be honest. If you want to play any game, it has to be tough going. But yeah, like I certainly, and see, my dad was a terrible messer as well, so he used to play all sorts of tricks on us, as he did with many others, can I point out, including my mother, who used to, because Mum stopped playing and then used to drive us to all the tournaments and the matches, and like any tennis mom or football mom, she'd be sitting at the back of the court, kind of, terrified we were going to win or lose, that we were going to lose or something would happen. So much so that in 1979 the Pope came to Ireland, Pope John Paul II, and 1.5 million people went to see him in the Phoenix Park here in Dublin, including myself and my mum, can I point out. And it was a great day out, but they built this big altar, and they covered it in this magnificent green carpet. And a couple of days later, Dad heard on the radio that they were taking up the carpet, but hundreds of people were going up and taking little snippets of it as a reminder of the Pope's visit. So he came home with this small snippet of papal carpet, gave it to my mother. So when we were on court, and Mum was on the back of the court, egging us on, she had this this papal carpet, and she used to be praying to it so that we would win.
Really? Really?
Yes. So our good friends like Pam Pearden, Amanda Dunlop, Holly Connolly, or Holly Lane, all those good Protestant people had absolutely no chance, because my mother had this papal carpet, and this, it was like a relic, as they still have in some of the churches. And so she had this little bit of carpet that she, so much so, some of the Amanda Dunlop's mum came over to her one day and said, "Amanda's in a final. Can I have a lend of the bit of carpet?" And can I just point out that it was only in the last 5 years, now my dad died 30-something years ago, 36 years ago, that we found out from a friend that he'd actually gone into the local carpet shop and asked for a sample, as you do. And they gave him a little bit of nearly the same green carpet as was on the papal cross and the altar.
What a brilliant story.
So I don't know who my mother was actually praying to. Was it Axminster or something like that when she had the, So they were the kind of things that.
Yeah, I love that.
That he did.
That was from a family of entertainers. He liked to entertain, an exhibitionist,
well,
right?
Yeah, but you see, he had grown up in that.
An exhibitionist,
yeah. Yes, absolutely, and that's why when they were building Whitehall Road or Terranure, that he was heavily involved in kind of organising some of the fundraising. There was a great man called Jack Morton, who had a shop in town, and Jack organised these what they called Badminton Circus.
Right.
And this was exhibition matches, and they went around Ireland. They went to parts of England. They were in Bristol, invited over to Bristol as well, to do badminton exhibitions. And it was like, because Dad was the comic and Frank Peart was a very kind of straight man, kind of stuff. And so they used to make fun of Frank all the time, And part of the gig was that Dad would be. Like a three-legged race, he'd be tied to his partner, a man called Des Lacey, and they were played at men's doubles. This is how you shouldn't play men's doubles, or this is how you should play men's doubles. And so they were getting money to build a hall all over the place. And like the players they had, like you had Frank, you had Jim Fitzgibbon, you had Dad, you had Bobby Harris. On the ladies, then you had. You would have had Mary O'Sullivan, you would have had Yvonne Kelly, who all, were getting to semi-finals and quarterfinals of All England. So these were absolute superstars of badminton players. And you can imagine why people turned up to see them.
Yeah.
It really was an incredible...
Three-legged badminton, that must have been a good laugh.
Well, could you imagine that? Yeah,
health and safety nightmare.
It was just, and then Dad being the Joker, he would... And having seen, obviously, his brother and sister on the stage, they had all these little gags that he would do. The elephant, he'd put the coat on himself and he'd have his hand as the trunk in the coat, and they'd feed him a bun, and he'd take in the bun, and then, of course, it would shoot out the other, this is what happens, in the zoo. All this kind of stuff. So there was all kind of...
Sounds like a big character.
Humor.
It sounds like a big personality, a good laugh, for sure. And a lot of laughter growing up. That's good, brilliant. But back to questions. I could honestly, why and when did you start playing? That's an obvious one. It was your dad, really, wasn't it? And it was the family. Yeah. And tell me, did Ursula play? Did your dad's mum play? Yeah.
No, Ursula.
Sorry, your dad's. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she did play because you see. The hall that they played in here in Dublin was the gas company, which was literally, they lived in the centre, like the inner city of the city.
Yes.
And it was the old gas company, which had an office here in Delir Street. And they had a badminton hall on the 3rd floor.
Wow.
Now, it was a very low hall, but there was a man called Jeff Trapnell, who was one of the directors of the gas company, who was a great badminton man. And he had this club, the gas company. And the one great thing about the hall was, because it was owned by the gas company, it was their building, it was actually warm. And they had hot showers, not like every other hall anywhere. So if you were a good badminton player, the chances are you wound up working in the gas company here in Dublin. And so Ursula did play badminton, but then she went off kind of touring over to overseas and that kind of stuff quite a bit. So because like she performed, Nola and herself, they did the old Empire circuit in the UK, and like they were on some of the shows with what would have been the Crazy Gang, Flanagan and Allen, who were superstars in variety back in the 40s and 50s. The one place, as I said last night, they never went to was the Empire in Glasgow, because that was just murder. You never got out alive. I believe that Des O'Connor went out to sing a song and he just fainted.
I don't know if you watched. I don't know if you watched the Laurel and Hardy film. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, that made me laugh when they were in Newcastle. That made me laugh. And Glasgow. They went to Glasgow as well, didn't it? Yeah, it was good. Yeah, really good.
They came to Dublin. They played Dublin as well. But yeah, like they were the kind of, they were moving from town to town, city to city.
So they'd be away for a long time.
Yes.
That's it. And where did you, before the Whitehill Road Badminton, where did they used to play? When did you used to play before that was there? They obviously worked on building that and everything else. Where was it before?
Well, there was a lot of the churches had halls, and there was a couple
single court,
single courts. There was a couple like here in Dublin, companies like Guinness's, Jacob's Biscuits, these kind of very established companies, the gas company, were very socially conscious about looking after their staff. So they had halls and recreation areas. So now there would have been very few and far between, but most of them were in kind of Protestant halls beside their churches. And that's where a lot of people would have played, quite honestly.
But what they wanted was a dedicated badminton centre, if you like, was it?
And it was kind of the first one ever built, kind of in anywhere in Ireland or England or Scotland or Wales or even in Europe, that they put in. Frank Peard would want to be one of the main drivers of that. Dad's training was digging out the car park in Whitehall Road in Terranure for 2 months every Saturday and Sunday, just to pick out the stones. And a lot of other people did amazing work. We have actually a clip of film of the opening night of the hall, and it's the only. Unfortunately, I never saw Dad play.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because he finished so early, which is a shame.
But it sounds like you spent a lot of time with him, anyway, which is good, right?
Oh yeah.
So okay, back to questions. Do you remember your first racket?
Yes, I had one of those greys, the blue ones.
Yeah.
It was like,
I don't know. Again, you're far too old for me.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm only 50. I'm only 50, so you've got...
Okay, sorry. Okay. So this weighed a ton, but I got it for Christmas. So you were delighted with it. And that
was your dream. 13, that's what you wanted. And that's really... And that was it. Was that the first racket you got at 12 and 13? Was it? So you started at 9 and you got kind of hand-me-downs, right?
Yeah, well, we would have been using Dad's rackets.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Much to his displeasure, can I say? What
was the name of your first club?
Well, it would have been St. Gabriel's, and then I went and joined Aylesbury Badminton Club because Mum and Dad played in Aylesbury, and over the other side of the city. So we went over. They had a group of us, like Barry Coffey, Robert, Colin Levins, myself, Peter Bastable. We all joined Aylesbury around the same time because we were up and coming players.
Yeah. And when did you start? Obviously, you never saw your dad play at all.
Not competitively, no.
No, but you play in a club night with him?
Very, very rare. No, he wouldn't really. He might just stand on the court, but he wouldn't kind of.
Really? Why?
Sorry.
Why not?
Well, see, he had a few health issues, and he just didn't. He had very high blood pressure and stuff like that, and he just was bad enough his blood pressure with us playing, let alone going out and playing himself. Quite honestly.
And was he always a coach when you were on playing? Was he there watching?
Oh yeah. Well, he would. And in fairness to him, he would never criticize you. Like. We used to, if my mum was there, what would happen is, in the car on the way back, if you lost. Now, if you played well, he would tell you, and if he wasn't too happy, you'd know because he was quiet in the car on the way back across the city. And you got to a certain point going through the city, maybe O'Connell Bridge or whatever, before you crossed over to the north side. And my mother would just say to him, well, you better say something to him. You weren't happy with the way he played. And you can't, so if you got past O'Connell Bridge,
you're okay. Yeah.
You were okay. You didn't do too badly.
That's good. Shuttles, you said heavy plastics, right?
Yeah, the carton ones.
Heavy carton.
That you couldn't break.
I remember Mavis 300s is what I remember, but I don't think that's not them, is it?
No, these were carton ones.
They were Carlton. No, you're right. The Yonex. No, I think you're right. I think we do Carlton as well. And was your dad your first coach? And who was the coach after your dad?
Okay, so after Dad, well, we would have had Sue for for different sessions. Sue Peard. We would have had.
Sorry, going back to Sue. What would she teach you that was different from what your dad had taught you?
Not a lot, because they were all cut by the same cloth, really, of that generation. Frank was very, how would you put it? He was very technical,
right,
and believed in, kind of, you trained, you did your routines, and you kept training and training until you dropped.
Really? That's physical.
Yeah.
A physical coach,
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely.
And your dad wasn't like that? He didn't instill on you should go running, you should do weights, you should do whatever. He wasn't like that.
Well, Dad used to encourage us, but at the end of the day, it was up to ourselves, to do the work. Now then, what happened? The Leinster branch had all these kind of all-day Sunday sessions, and they got together players from the different, I think there's 9 or 10 counties in Leinster, and they got the best players who were all about the same standard, and we would have been of that standard under 15. Right. So you got to play against adults, and you learned a huge amount about how to actually win a game.
Yeah.
We thought we were, superstars under 15 and under 18 because we were beating loads of people. But, it's only when you start getting out of that age group, and playing against players that have, who have a great defense or have never been coached. And you think, great, if I send this down this side, they have to, you run up to the net waiting for them to play a drop or whatever. And that's not what happened. They suddenly flung the shuttle across the court, and you kind of went, where do they hit that? That's not what's supposed to happen. So we learned a huge amount from Martin Brennan was one of our coaches there, and David Galloway. So we did a lot of work on court with those people as well.
It was really interesting. I speak to a group in Indonesia. I've had a couple of interviews with them, and they were at a tournament last week, and they're a professional group, and they're aged between 10 and 18, and they're in a residential badminton centre, right? And they live there, and they play for 6 hours, and a 10-year-old Fadil, he's 10. Right, yeah. And you watch him play, and his footwork and his amazing, right? You watch him, see. Have a look on the YouTube channel, and if you go into the playlist international, and you'll see the Indonesian group, and they played in a tournament, and I think Danilo got through. They expected him to win, but I think he got knocked out in the second round. I think it was. Anyway, again, exceptional. But you just watch this. There were 400 players at this event. 400 at this tournament in Depok City, week past Saturday. Anyway, so they all turned up, high expectations, and at the end of it, there was a big, the kit went back to Java, Central Java, and they kind of had a debrief had a one-on-one meeting with each of the players and said, how do you feel and what went wrong and la 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 la, and it all kind of came down to the fact that what they decided was they'd been trained and they coached and they knew all the techniques, but they've never ever had any practical experience of playing club badminton or playing people. Yeah. And what they basically said, what they actually said was, they're like robots. Somebody's taught, if it goes there, go there. If it goes there, do that. If you do this, do that. Yeah. And it goes on. And at no point do you, nobody, it's only when you go, I know some, I don't know about you, but I know some exceptional players that are quirky, to say the least. There's a guy in Edinburgh called Roger Layden, who, I don't know if he'll watch this, he probably won't, who plays the weirdest weirdest drop shots at the weirdest angles. He's got the weirdest serve. He's got the weirdest, quirkiest things, and you think it's successful, right? It's don't get me wrong, it doesn't work all the time, but you need something like that. You need to learn something a bit different, I think.
Yes.
And I think you only get that at club, and you only get that playing against older players, frankly, who are too tired to try and win it through stamina. So they've got to put. You and I have got to pull out clever little shots to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah, or slow the game down to, ask what's the score, can I change the shuttle, all that kind of stuff, and when you're a young whippersnapper, you just want to, we're here to win, and you're, running around the court and you're looking fantastic, and you're playing great shots, and suddenly you come up against a brick wall, these people just keep getting the shuttle back.
What's you thinking on the new scoring system, Connor? Of the plan of the suggestion of the scoring system.
5 of 11.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think where I'd have a problem, quite honestly, with this is remembering how many sets I'd won or lost out of 5. Have I won 3 or have I won 2 or what's the score? I now I can understand why they're thinking about it to make it quicker and faster and more exciting. And that's fair enough, but it was hard enough trying to change from the old scoring system to, the
that's
new
what I think, and that feels quite recent to me.
I know that's.
I know to 21 feels quite recent to me. I know it's not, but it feels like to 21 is like quite recent to me. But it's probably like 20 years ago.
But do you remember they changed it for a while to, was it 5 of 9 or something? And I loved that because you could go out and run around the court, and if you won 3 or 4 points in a row, suddenly, the others were under pressure. And I would have been probably late 30s, early 40s at that stage. So, you could nearly win a game very quickly.
I was watching just on a different subject altogether. I was watching a Peter Gade match. I think it was the World Championships, the final of the World Championships, and Peter Gade. It was a 3-set game, and he lost the first one. He lost the first 15-11. Then he won the second 15-1, right? And then, but this one got me. It was 40-0. I think I fast forwarded because I thought I've had enough, kind of a bit. Yeah. I fast forwarded and I got to kind of stop resuming 40-0 match point, and I'm thinking 40-0 match point, 40-0, and I'd totally forgotten that you didn't have to set. That's right.
Like if you got to 30-0 and they only had one hand, in the mixed, it was a great. If the girl was serving to you, because Frank Peard had it all worked out. He mathematically worked out that if the fella started instead of the lady, now of course that was a major issue.
Yes, that's right.
The lady always started, but if the fella started, if it got to the 5th set, mathematically, if you went setting, or if it got to 13 or 14 all, the girl would have to serve to the fella.
See, yes.
Now I don't know what happened. Nowadays,
but if you remember, it was quite exciting. I mean, that was when I watched it. It was 14-0. I thought, oh my God, there's not 2 clear points. There's no setting whatsoever. I mean, look at now, 21-23, 28-26, all that. But when you got to 14-0, and when somebody would call straight, and I remember the pressure. I remember being in that situation and saying, no, I'm going straight. It's like poker. It was like poker.
Yes.
How many times did you do that and somebody served into the net?
Well, you see, this is where, even at 13 all, that if they were serving to you, well, like I was a devil, I used to be hanging over the line because there was proper serving. There was none of this stuff off your chest as they do now. Yes. They had to be below your waist properly. That's right. You could jump the shuttle, jump the serve, and even if you did jump the serve and you hit it into the net, it cost you 1 point, and they were at 14, they still had to serve. So many is a time you just kind of go, no. Now, when I was playing with Elaine, you'd say to Elaine, what do you think? Will we set or not? And she, as was illustrated the other night, I think it was Gary Stango said, that she gave you this stare that just said, get back in your box and just do what you're told. We're setting. It's as simple as that. She didn't even have to say anything. She just,
She said she forehand served, right? Did you forehand serve as well, or backhand?
Yes, absolutely.
And you,
never learned.
And you still backhand serve? Do you still forehand serve?
Yeah.
Do you? Did you watch it? I don't know if you watched Bruce. Jim Mailer played against Bruce Flocker, and he was at the final point. I think it was. I can't remember what the score was, but it was for the. I think he came back to win it, and he did the drive. My friend Aslan does that serve as well. So your arm's way out right. It's way out right. Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
And the serve, and you drive the shuttle from your hip down the right-hand side, down the left-hand side of your opponent, straight down the line, right? And that never happens. You never see that serve. It amazes me that you still don't see that serve now. Why not? It's a great serve.
You'd go out to the tram line.
Yeah, massive. Yeah.
You'd stand on the tram lines and serve.
Oh my God! Remember that? Now you're talking you're standing on the right-hand side of the court serving.
Right, yeah.
I remember that.
Yes. Yeah, and
wow.
That's a great proponent of that was Chippy Peard, Mark Peard, what you call it, Pam's brother, Franken's son. He's a left-hander,
right?
So
right.
He could do it from the other side. You see, in left-handers seem to be able to bring the shuttle in and across or something. I don't know how they do it, but it was a great, if especially in the old game. The old scoring, if you were 10 points down, you're kind of going, like, I've nothing to lose here. If I just get 5 or 6 points, I can get back in, and that's what many's the time. And you'd say to your partner, you'd practice it, I'm going out to the corner here. And they'd stand, they wouldn't stand where they'd be defending in the middle of the court.
Yes.
Because the chances are, if you push it in over his backhand, he's going to hit it straight back at you.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
The same if you're in the left-hand court and you just moved out maybe a foot or two to push it straight down the line, as you're saying, trying to get it in, drive it down the line. The guy or girl, there's 99% of a chance they're going to hit it straight at you. Yeah. So if you've your backhand ready to defend, you can just put it straight down the line.
There was so much variety in serves. There's none of that now. You think there's absolutely none. And I was going to say something. I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to say? Oh God, I can't remember what I was going to say now. It was really sad, but it was. I'll come back to me. Let's go back to these questions.
Sorry.
What was your? It's good, all good. What's the first ever tournament you played in and your first trophy?
Okay, so because Dublin is divided between the north and the south side, and there's always a great rivalry between the north and the south side. Southsiders all think they're posh and they're better than us on the north side.
I see.
And so there was a lovely man called Douglas Carson and my dad, and they set up a north side tournament for the kids on the north side because there was probably 5 or 6 junior clubs on this side of the city, and they weren't getting much play. They play amongst themselves, and then they might play 1 or 2 tournaments, but very little. So they set up a Northside tournament, and the first one I played in was under 15, and it was on a 2-court hall one Saturday up in the airport, Dublin Airport. Yeah. And I won the singles. I played with Peter Baspel in the doubles, and Jacqueline, my older sister, beat me in the final of the mixed. She played with Peter in the mixed. Right. And they were the first medals that I won.
Good.
I think, as I said, I have those medals. It's terrible that I have some of this stuff.
Not at all. Most people do. Most people do, and I encourage you to look it out and remind yourself of those times. Right, it's all good, isn't it? And did you always play? The next question was doubles, singles, doubles, and mixed.
Yeah, you used to enter in all 3.
Did you? Elaine said that. She said no. If you went to a tournament, you had to do all 3. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as time went on, I much preferred. You see how the tournaments went here. They played the singles on the Friday night, and then kind of the doubles on Saturday and the mixed on the doubles on a Saturday morning, the mix in the afternoon. So you could play the singles on a Friday night. Now, if you got through to the semis, they were Saturday morning. So you could actually do that. It was a good way of getting your eye in after maybe training during the week or whatever.
Yeah.
So that now as time went on, singles was never my my forte really. But I loved a good men's doubles or a good mixed.
Elaine sent me a funny story. She told me she said she used to hate she'd hate being in the finals because she knew there was a disco going on and she was missing it.
Yeah, you see, that was the problem. You see, I don't know if you've been to Whitehall Road.
No.
Like invariably the tournaments, particularly the mixed, was always the last on. And if the tournament was delayed, it could be 11 or half 11 on the Saturday night, and the party or whatever would have started, and you could see the lights in the hall. When you were downstairs, because the bar was up above, and you could see the lights on flashing, and you'd be kind of going, yeah, I'd much prefer to be up there than down here. And most people, in fairness, would have turned up to see the finals, but after the men's doubles, they weren't going to be hanging around for a mixed if they could whoop, and the bar was about to close upstairs. So they, you were, hanging around for a long time before you got to play your games.
I just love that story. Seeing the lights of the disco when you're on court, that's so funny, isn't it? That is so funny. Who was your main competition growing up, please, Connor?
Okay, so here in Leinster, it would have been Robert Taylor and Barry Coffey and Peter Bastable. Conall Nevins would have been another one. Then when we used to play, against Ulster, you had Graham Henderson and Paul.
Sorry,
Wallace.
Can you tell me what the difference is? I'm so stupid and thick. What is Leinster and what is Ulster? Tell me what is that?
Ireland is broken into 4 provinces historically.
Right.
So you have Munster, you have Leinster, Connacht, and Ulster.
Right.
And the main centres for badminton have always been Ulster and Leinster. Now, Connacht have produced a few players.
So that's the whole of Ireland. Those
the whole of
4
Ireland.
territories.
Yeah, there was four provinces.
Where are they? So the north, south, east. What is there? Where are they?
Well, north. Yeah, Ulster is up north.
Right.
And
northwest, northeast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you had Connacht, which is out the west of the country, and then down south you had Munster.
Right.
So they were the 4 provinces.
I see.
And then they're subdivided into counties.
Right. Yes, I see. I understand. Sorry, you're saying I distracted you.
So the Ulster players would have been Paul Wallace, Graham Henderson, Peter Ferguson, and Ricky Craig. Now, Ricky Craig was, without doubt, head and shoulders above the whole lot of us. He was a magnificent player. And unfortunately, he played a number of senior internationals, and then he packed it in, unfortunately, because he really was now super of my age group. Right. He was a super men's doubles and mixed doubles player.
And he stopped?
He just made it look too easy.
He packed it in?
He did, yeah, shocking. Now, Peter Ferguson was brilliant. The great thing about Peter Ferguson is that he was an entertainer as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Peter loved going out and entertaining the crowd. Win or lose or draw. And he won a lot of them, in fairness. But he loved just, if there was a crowd, having a laugh, playing some... He was left-hander, as far as I remember, playing some, behind the back shots between the legs, all that kind of stuff. And he could do it consummate ease, no problem. And he was a great crowd pleaser.
And who was your partner? Did you have a favourite partner?
Oh yeah, well, my partners started off with Peter underage, and then I was with Robert Taylor for a number of years in the underage, and then I played with David Borton, who went on to be a surgeon, and he's doing great business out of all his badminton players, replacing knees, hips, all sorts of joints. He'll never be wanting for work, because I think, as you know yourself, badminton players are kind of prone to all sorts of stuff. And then I played with a great guy called Joe Abbott. Joe had the greatest defense. Joe was he wasn't the tallest of chaps, but Joe used to go down on his knees to defend. Really? Guys were hammering it at him, and he just kept batting it back at them. Yeah. He had a fantastic defence, a really nice guy. So they would have been my main partners.
Good. Current time's run now. So, what clubs do you play now? Normally, obviously, present time exceptional, accepted. Do you play in a club now?
I'm not in a club at the moment.
Aren't you?
I haven't played for about seriously. Well, sorry, I'm registered through a club called White Abbey, up in Belfast, because a very good friend of mine, Trevor Brennan, and another lady called and a lady called Janet Ferguson, run the club, and they've a beautiful 2-court hall, a church hall, beside the church in White Abbey, and to play in some of the vets events, you have to be registered, obviously,
in a club.
Affiliated. So they register me if ever I want to play in events.
Why don't you play in a club in Dublin?
I don't have some of the interest that I have.
Don't you?
I think you go through, which you can see I'm kind of busy doing other things.
Sure.
So, like maybe now that I'm gone into the over 60s,
really?
it might, it might kind of rekindle like I got 10 or 11 years out of the vets, like at the age of 40, I was kind of going, do I really want to? I'd played a bit, obviously, and the kids had arrived, and time was tight. Yes. Let's be honest. So I went over to Largs, and met Leon, Douglas, and Christine, and the lads, Gordon Keith and his brother from the Shetlands, and all the guys like from England, Peter Empage, and like it was just a different world. Suddenly you were playing badminton with players of your own age, all having a bit of a laugh, that some of you had met before through, kind of schools, events or whatever. Some of them then, of course, their parents had played against my dad, against Scotland or England or whatever. And it was a fantastic setup. And then when I came home, I spoke to the guys in Badminton Ireland, and I said, look, we need to set up a vets event or a vets committee or whatever. Yes. And in fairness to Amanda Dunlop and Brian McKee, they had organised a couple of kind of friendly matches between players from Ulster and Leinster, but this was going to push it further. Because as we mentioned last night, the situation there was here in Ireland for God knows how many years, a lot of really good players from north of the border and from this side of the border never got the opportunity or never really wanted to travel for security reasons. Yes. Which is fair enough. Like you have to be reasonable here. But things were sorted out, so this was an opportunity for really good inter-county players or really good club players to give them a chance, to play internationally, to play in a World Championship, to play in the European Championships or the Scottish Open vets or other tournaments across the UK. Because in fairness to the guys in England and Scotland, they have a fantastic vets. There must be a tournament somewhere every weekend.
And so, I was going to ask you about your coaching, Connor. Did you do any coaching?
I did. Did
you do any? Did you do exams? Did you get official coaching? Did you do that proper, like for years? Like
I did a fair amount for Leinster squads, and then I was down in Catka Juniors and that doing a lot of coaching. And then when we had the Special Olympics here, it was 80 or 82. There was a really nice guy called Tony Robinson, and he was looking after the special needs team for the badminton.
Yes.
And as you were just saying, about trying to feed some of these people the shuttle with themselves was very difficult. Yes. They had difficulty trying to hit the shuttle and start a rally. And I was down in the badminton hall in Baldoyle, and poor Tony was struggling big time. And so I said, look, do you want a hand? And so I gave him a hand, and that was brilliant because all you were doing was standing there feeding them the shuttle, to get to the same place each time. Because Tony said, right, we're going to try a smash, we're going to play a drop, but they didn't have the skill set at that stage to keep hitting it to the same spot each time.
Yes.
And their spatial awareness sometimes wasn't great because there was somebody on the court with them and they might bump into them, and that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that. That was excellent. I did that for a while. Really
You're no interest in coaching somebody as a performance coach, that somebody that's coming through the stages to go to become a national or international player. Do you think you have that in you to do that, or what do you think? What do you think about that?
No, I don't think so, because I think it's really important, and this is where the McGees are brilliant, in fairness to them, that they've grown up in that cycle. Yes. They're still at the top of their game, and people can see them play, and it's very important that young players who are aspiring to become good players or even better players see people like that play and how it should be played.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. If you watch my videos for Andy Cook, he was an exceptional coach. He was the first professional coach. He's an MBE. He's had the best players in Scotland through his fingertips, and he, by his own admission, wasn't that great a player. And it's just, but yet he attracted national players of the time, and I don't think it is about. I don't actually think it has. No, I think my mind has changed on that. Initially, I thought, exceptional badminton players have to be driven forwards by exceptional badminton players. But I'm learning differently over interviewing several coaches that, it's interesting. If I'm quite interested in that, it is very interesting to see players. I'm very interested in people learning from people that aren't as good as them. And I'm with you, by the way. I'm with you. I initially thought the same. I thought, you could. Why would anybody want to be coached by somebody that wasn't exceptional? You were taught by your dad. He was an international player and renowned, and you're in awe, right? So when you're playing with him, you're in awe, and you think, God, I'm being coached by. As you say about Sue Peard, oh my God, I'm being coached by. All of that. But my mind's changing a lot on that. There's people that are coaching people who are exceptional coaches that are just learning, that haven't had that, they haven't had the pitfalls of actual games and all that stuff. They just focus on learning strategies and learning every day, learning something different. Right, guys, let's try this, let's try that. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating for me.
But the one thing I would be good at is teaching people how to win.
Really?
That's, or talking to people, or encouraging people, or something like that. Yeah,
that's good. That's a massive part of coaching. That's massive.
Well, it is, that you can get a team together and say, right, lads, this is what we're doing, and getting that message across.
Definitely.
And win matches that perhaps, for whatever reason that they pull through.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Some people bottle it when they're about to win, and you think they've got it, and you lose it, and you think, how can that happen? Yeah.
And how
getting it over the line? Yeah, that's good. That's very interesting, Connor. Yeah. Okay, so your current. Sorry, I'm coming on. We've been over an hour again.
That's my.
No, it's me as well. Your current racket, I think you told me last night, is an Ashaway.
That's right. A 10-year or 12-year-old Ashaway. Grand rackets. Couldn't cope with these Yonex ones. They're too light.
No, I think you're right. Tension and string. You don't ask. I asked you that last night. And you said you didn't bother about tension. Or
I hand the rackets to Trevor Brennan and say, Trevor.
What about string? You bothered about string? Because Ashaway used to make good string, but I don't know if they do anymore. Ashaway strings was the thing. Remember?
String. Like I started off stringing rackets. And you use gut.
We passed that. You did that in your dad's sports shop, right?
Yeah. So like I did all that, so like if you trust the person that's stringing the racket, Trevor's brilliant, as I said, and if he's at a tournament, you say, Trevor, or at the start of the season, now I drop up to see Trevor. Obviously, when it's lockdown, we can't. Yeah. Maybe during the summer a couple of times and say, Trevor, I leave these ones with you, and will you have them at the first tournament? He says, yeah, grand, no problem. And they arrive and they're perfect. It's as simple as that. I don't know what tension you put. I must ask him.
You should. It's probably about 24, 25, I reckon.
No idea.
Family life. Have you got kids?
I do. Well, they're all
Yes,
grown up.
Kevin and
Kevin is 25, Breen is 28, and James is 32.
yeah, all grown up. And are they badminton players?
James played for a while. Wasn't the most skillful of players, but tried really hard and packed it in. Breen, the second fellow, was a good player. He moved around the court very well, but played an awful lot of football. He loved football, and he was a good singer. And he tried out for the X Factor a couple of times and stuff like that. Unfortunately, voice, here in Ireland, but unfortunately he never got through.
Cool.
And then he packed it in, which was a shame. And then Kevin was a good player.
Really?
Kevin was a solid player. Kevin went and played in Nottingham.
Oh, really?
Under 16.
Brilliant.
So he was for the Leinster team. So he was a good player. And then he, after he finished his exams in school, he went to college. He played intervarsities a couple of times, but then he went off to study in the States for a year and 2 years or whatever, and hasn't really got back to it.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
He might.
I hope he does. I mean, it sounds like there's an abundance of clubs in Dublin, like 70 clubs I'm hearing in Dublin. So you've definitely got a choice. And yourself, by the way. Get Kevin to a badminton club. The two of you, get you and Kevin to a badminton club. That's your task for when you come out of lockdown. Get yourself to your dad's. So the hall that your dad built, is it still there and running?
Oh, the Whitehall Road is still there. Now he didn't know. No, I wouldn't go that far now, Martin. That he built it, and
no, but he was obviously emotionally very attached to it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like we just called it the Hall. That was what it was called in our house. It wasn't Whitehall Road or Terranure Badminton Centre. It was rebranded, and people were saying, "Are you coming up to Terranure Centre to play?" We're going, "Was that a new place?" It's been there for 60 or 70 years at this time.
Well, you should go. You should go wherever there's a club there. You should go to it for sure. Yeah. Okay. Favorite partner? You've been through that. Competitive now. Okay, I'm just going to finish with this question because we've been an hour and 10 minutes.
No.
What I know, I'm sorry. Second night in a row, we've had 2.5 hours together. So, what is it you love about badminton? That's the question. That is the official question. But I guess it's So, what is it you feel about badminton?
I think the friendships you make, and the camaraderie, and the social aspect of the game is fantastic. And those players that you played against under 15, under 18, and whatever, you may not see them for many a year, and then you might bump into them. And that's where the Vets was brilliant. It really was, and it still is that, you bump into players that you haven't seen for a very, very long time, and you can still go out and have a meal or a drink with everybody. And I think that is the one aspect of the game. Like Barry's been in France for the last, I think it's 20 or 25 years. And Trish, my wife, and myself were out there a couple of years ago at the south of France, and we called in to see him. And it was as if, Well,
it's amazing how many. I mean, you talk about people that you meet over the years, and you've mentioned probably 100 names, I reckon. No, seriously though, because everybody's the same. They say everybody comes on here and they say the same thing. Well, I can't remember. I can't remember anything. Before they come on, they always say, Elaine said the same. I've got a terrible memory. I can't remember anything. But you know what it is? It's connected thinking. When you think about things sequentially, it come back to you. You remember things. Then you think, God, you'll watch this back and you think, God, remember that guy. It's amazing when you. I'm fascinated by that. Actually, I should listen back to them, but I don't have time. I've got a couple of messages here. One from James. Nothing motivates you like a roar from Connor across the court. Is that your son, James?
That is, yes. I found coaching my sons sometimes very difficult and frustrating. And I think as a player, you kind of think, if you, and maybe as a parent, you kind of go, I've asked you to do this once, now do it, and certainly, you would let a roar across the hall,
Well, so he was on the court playing, and you would be there from the back.
Well, not when he was playing a match. It would have been when he was training or coaching him. Yeah. You'd certainly, well, you see, I came through the coaching with a lady called Mary Dinan, who an amazing lady who started off her sporting career playing camogie or hurling, and Mary did not suffer fools at all, and she had a voice that would, kind of take the roof off a hall. And having played mixed with Mary, she played more like a men's doubles than a mixed doubles. The old days where the lady used to stay at the net.
Yes.
That was not Mary. And if you were playing a match with Mary and suddenly, they'd serve high to her and she'd play a smash and you'd go up to the net just, to cover because she wasn't going to get to it or whatever.
Yes.
And suddenly she was there. And if they got it over your head, she was standing beside you and she'd just look at you and say, and she'd let her roar, yours, get that. And by Jesus,
you'd be there.
You were at the back of the court within a hop, skip, and a jump, and made sure you were able to do something with that shuttle. So sometimes that particular trait rubbed off on me, I have to say.
Yes, good for you. Quite right. Okay, that's great. I've got one more comment. Of apparently Phil says Aylesbury still play in tenure. Aylesbury must be the club, is it?
Aylesbury still play. They do. That's right. Yeah, and they also have a hall in Temple, is it Tal as well? So they're still there on a Tuesday night, where I at the same venue, same time as I did. Let me see. It would be 45 years ago.
Wow. Well, I hope you go back. Connor, I'm going to let you go with that. So thank you very much. It's been amazing again. Again, second time. Who would have thought? Same time tomorrow, 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
I'm going Thursday. Can't do Thursday because I have to go shopping. My weekly out.
Get on. Come on. Get on test. Just do an online shop. Don't worry about it later. Thank you.
No, I'm going into a suit. I'm going to wear a suit someday to go.
Are you one of these guys that wears a tie to go to the supermarket? You're old when you wear a tie to go to the supermarket and a suit and the blazer.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna become that guy that kind of irons a shirt and puts a tie on to go to the supermarket. That's what I'm gonna do. Anyway, lovely to see you. Take care. And we are friends now. Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, Bye. Mark. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. It was really great for me. Anyway, sorry about that. Lovely to meet Connor again. I was on for an hour and 15 minutes last night, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'm just going to record, and I hope the sound issue was resolved, which was, anyway, fascinating stories. I could just talk all night, to be honest. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. You'll see it online now on YouTube. I'm just going to upload. It'll be a fair size of a file, so that'll take some time. Probably be on within the next hour by 9 o'clock on YouTube, and upload as a podcast. I just strip the audio and it goes to a podcast where you get on Spotify or Anchor or any of the podcast providers, to be honest with you. Please subscribe if you can to the YouTube channel. I've had thousands and thousands of views and comments and likes, but subscribers is just it's really hard to measure how well you're doing without the subscribe. It's really, and it's a bit of a cliche at the moment, subscribe. I'm sorry to bang on about it, but it just feels like a measure to how we're doing and who likes it, I suppose. I promise not to bombard you with too many comments on it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it all. I really did. And I'll speak again soon. Anybody you know of would like to come on for a chat about their story. Nobody thinks they've got a story, but they most do, and the memories certainly come flowing back. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll speak again soon. Take care.